In fact, we're going to return to our top story. Top-level talks have taken place in recent days to try and ease heightened tensions over the Crimean crisis in Ukraine. Earlier, I spoke with Jen Psaki. She's the U.S. State Department Spokeswoman. I started by asking her whether the current crisis demands both pressure and diplomacy in equal measure.
Right. It is equal parts pressure and diplomacy. And what we're doing today, as you know, yesterday the president announced that we are preparing sanctions on Russian officials. So that is a process that's being discussed in terms of who will be targeted and how we'll implement that. We also announced visa bans. That's pressure. The EU came out and made an announcement about steps they're prepared to take. Obviously, unity among the international community is incredibly important. At the same time, we firmly believe that there needs to be an off-ramp, and diplomacy and having discussions about it is also what we're doing. So President Obama spoke with President Putin last night. Secretary Kerry actually spoke with Foreign Minister Lavrov today and was engaged with him over the last couple of days. And that's an important part, too. We want to see an end here. Our goal is not sanctions. Our goal is bringing an end to what's happening on the ground in Ukraine.
But each side sees the ending differently.
You're right. That's why we have to have a negotiation, because everybody isn't aligned. You know, I think it's day by day. We're taking it day by day. We do think the pressure is working, the political pressure and the economic pressure. The next step here we're very focused on is getting the government of Ukraine together with officials from Russia to have a discussion. The international community, the United States, can be a part of that. We're happy to be. But they need to sit at a table to talk about how we see this moving.
On March 16th, for Crimea to secede and join Russia.
Well, the referendum is not something that even the Constitution of Ukraine would recognize the results of. So our view is it's not legitimate. That's the view of most of the international community. It's no surprise that Russia recognizes it, but when the international community doesn't recognize it, the Constitution of Ukraine doesn't recognize it, that's pretty significant.
But there are those who would see irony in the counter narratives that are going on. The West seemed to support the protesters for months as they occupied Independence Square. A democratically elected government is chased from office. Now these protesters are able to kind of write their own story. And yet now the people in Crimea are saying, well, hey, wait, we want to do the same thing. So how do you square these two narratives?
Well, it's not about what the West wants. Crimea is a part of Ukraine. Ukraine is Crimea. Ukraine represents all of the people in Ukraine, including the people in Crimea. Obviously, there's going to be a discussion about where to move forward, what to do about Crimea, what to do about the differences of views of the government of Ukraine and the government of Russia and many in the international community. And we're looking forward to that step. But it's not an appropriate time to take a unilateral step of having a referendum for one area, especially when it's illegitimate according to the country's own constitution.
But Scotland is voting on whether or not it can secede from the UK. You know and I know that there are those in Texas who want to have a vote on whether or not they secede from the United States. What's the difference?
Entirely different. Nobody is invading in those cases. Russia has invaded Ukraine. There are, of course, a range of these issues that are going on around the world at any given time. I certainly quite enjoy Texas, and I hope they don't take any steps. But no, this is a unique case, a case where a country has invaded another country, and they're trying to break off a piece of that country. They support the referendum. That's no surprise. But that's not how this can go down, and that's broadly the view of the international community.
How would you characterize the calls between Putin and Obama and the discussions that went on between Kerry and Lavrov? We know that they've been able to work on other issues. They seem to have a personal relationship. How would you describe those?
Well, there are areas where we agree and areas where we disagree and even strongly disagree. This is one of the areas where we strongly disagree. But we work together on Iran. We work together on the chemical weapons plan for Syria. But look, this is a combination of issues that are being discussed, including the steps that we're open and willing to take and have already taken, but including the off-ramp. And that's something that is always a part of every diplomatic conversation that President Obama and Secretary Kerry have with their counterparts.
I went to lunch today with a source of mine at the Pentagon, and he said, really, when you look at the toolbox available, there aren't many tools for the United States. Would you agree?
Well, we've already taken, there's several tools in the toolkit, as we like to say. There's economic pressure, there's political pressure. Nobody wants to pursue military engagement at this point. I don't think that changes, but political pressure and economic pressure, we have a range of options. We could not attend the G8. We've been clear that that's a possibility that we're open to. We can expand the sanctions. Obviously, we're in the implementation phase determining the targets, but the authority that was put in place yesterday will allow us to do that. We gave ourselves flexibility in all of those areas, and we do think that those tools can be very effective.